What if I told you that all that you needed to make $1 million was confidence? And what if I said that you could attract millions of super good looking females if you would just learn how to trust yourself? In my video, The True Cost of Not Having Confidence, I told you about all of the opportunities that you could be missing out on if you don't have confidence. So now you're about to learn a few sneaky ways to unlock the superhuman confidence that is hidden within you. But before we get started, there's something that you need to know. Everything that you do, all of your beliefs, and everything that makes you the person that you are today is controlled by perception. More specifically, it is controlled by your perception of the world around you. Most of our problems in life stem from not having enough confidence or self-worth, or in other words, how we perceive ourselves. So if you change your perception, then you can change everything about your life. Number 1, impress the boss. Your first thought is probably, why would I want to impress my boss? After all, most of us can't stand our bosses. But when I say boss, I'm talking about something infinitely more important than the guy who runs the show at your work. The boss that I'm talking about is the one inside of your head. And most people have no idea that this guy even exists. Hidden deep within your mind is like a miniature version of you. But it's not your inner voice that you use to talk with yourself throughout the day. This guy, who is hidden behind the scenes, is much more important. And something that you need to understand is that he is always watching. He's the guy who knows when you don't stay true to yourself. He's the guy who has a detailed record of everything you've ever done in your entire life. And he knows way more about yourself than you do. And this guy wants you to succeed more than anything because he is a part of you. So one of the ways to begin unlocking your confidence is to impress the boss. Every time that you miss out on an opportunity because you chicken out for some ridiculous reason that doesn't make any sense, the boss is watching and he will either punish or reward you depending on how you handle the situation. Most guys in the world today have this completely backwards, and they spend their entire life trying to impress other people when the only person who needs to be impressed is the little guy inside of you. Impressing the boss is simple in theory, but difficult in practice. For those of you just starting out, the easiest way to begin impressing him is to face every irrational fear that you come across. And some other simple ways to keep him impressed are to live your life by a set of noble rules. And most importantly, stay true to yourself. That feeling in your gut that you get when you know you're doing something wrong but choose to do it anyway isn't really your gut. It's actually the boss. That feeling when you want to say something but you don't say it out of fear of what others will think of you. Once again, that's your boss, and he's pissed because he knows that you're capable of more. Your boss is the one who is holding your confidence hostage from you, nobody else. They always say that we are our greatest enemy, but what they don't say is that we can also be our greatest ally if you know how to impress the boss. Now this guy is actually really easy to impress, but the problem is that he's stubborn, so he needs a lot of convincing. Think about this. Imagine you have a close friend who you've been friends with for the last 10 years. This guy has known you long enough and done enough things with you to know that you're absolutely terrified of approaching good-looking women, and he knows that this is one of your biggest weaknesses. Now imagine you wanted to convince your friend that you really can do this, so you go out and you do it in front of him. So after the first time, he sees this and he figures it was just a fluke. He says, I bet you won't do that again. So you find another good-looking girl and you do it again. And now your friend is thinking to himself, okay, maybe he really can do this, but I need some more proof. So you go and approach more good-looking girls again and again and again. And each time you do it in front of him. Eventually, the evidence begins to pile up, and at some point it becomes too much, and it completely overrides your friend's old belief about you that said that you're scared to approach good-looking women. Now the boss inside of your head is like the friend, but the difference is that proving your boss wrong and impressing him yields infinitely better rewards than simply impressing your friend. Remember, the boss is always watching, so make sure that you're always working to impress him, because the more that you do this, the better the rewards that you will get from it. Number 2, change your perception. Every single human being on the planet sees the world through a different lens. Imagine 2 people are looking at a glass of water on the table. You ask each of them what they see. One of them sees a glass of water that is half full, and the other sees one that is half empty. This is crazy because they're both looking at the exact same object, yet each person sees something that is completely different than what the other person sees. What most guys don't realize is that we do not see with our eyes. And the truth is that we see with our mind. The eyes are merely tools that the mind uses to gather information. When we look at something, we're really looking at it through the lens of our mind. And that lens is shaped and distorted depending on our beliefs and life experiences. Imagine 2 male adults. One of these men was beaten with a spatula as a child, and the other had many fond memories of cooking in the kitchen with his loving mom, who would always use a spatula to cook with. Now imagine both of these men walking through the store and happening to notice a spatula for sale. One of them sees an instrument of love and fond memories, while the other sees an instrument of pain and torture. Now they're both looking at the same exact spatula, but each man sees something completely different depending on how the lens of his mind has been distorted due to his experiences and beliefs. Imagine two guys walking through the halls of their school. One has high self-esteem and the other has low self-esteem. As they're walking, each guy notices two attractive girls looking at them and giggling. Both of the men see exactly the same thing. However, each has a very different experience. The guy with high self-esteem sees the girls and believes that they're looking at him and giggling because they think he's cute. But when the guy with low self-esteem sees the girls looking at him and giggling, he sees the experience through the lens of low self-esteem and believes that the girls are actually laughing at him because they think he's ugly. Now here's the plot twist. In reality, or in the real world, and not the imaginary worlds created within the mind of each man, the girls were giggling and looking at each guy because they thought both of them were cute. But the guy who has low self-esteem sees a reality that is twisted and distorted by his beliefs about himself. So one of the keys to unlocking your confidence is to correct errors in your perception. For example, if you have the belief that you're a boring person, realize that you have this belief about yourself, and the next time that you're around people, correct your perception and assume that they're looking at you weird for any other reason other than because you're boring. In most situations, people are doing things for one of a million different reasons that have absolutely nothing to do with your perceived flaws. So think to yourself, those girls are looking at me and laughing, not because I'm ugly, but because they think I'm cute. In other words, try not to perceive the world through the lens of your insecurities and flaws, and instead, try to see it through the lens of your strengths and good qualities. Remember, the glass is half full, not half empty. Number 3, know your weaknesses. As humans, we all have weaknesses. Picture Thanos from the Avengers. In the last movie, he basically wiped out half of the entire universe and everyone in it with a flip of his fingers using the Infinity Gauntlet. Yet, even with all of his power, Thanos is still vulnerable to certain weaknesses. As men, our greatest weakness is our ego, and there is no faster way to completely destroy a man than through the destruction of his own ego. When two men get into a physical fight and one beats the other, most people would believe that the most important part was the physical part. But in reality, the physical part actually means nothing, because the real damage is done to the losing man's ego. A couple of broken bones and a bloody nose mean nothing. It is the long-lasting damage that occurs to the man's ego. Wise men know that the fastest way to completely destroy a man is not with countless armies of men, but with a few well-placed words that carry out a precise surgical strike to his ego. The truth is that the ego of men is very weak and fragile. This is why when girls test guys, they will ask a question that strikes directly at his ego because they intuitively know that this is the weakest link in our character, and a well-placed blow to the ego can bring the whole thing crashing down. Imagine a pro skateboarder. When doing tricks in the halfpipe, he is incredibly confident because he is practiced enough to learn enormous confidence doing this activity. But when told that he must give a speech in front of tens of thousands of people, he will experience an enormous amount of fear. This is because public speaking is a great weakness of his. For some guys, talking to attractive girls is just as scary as fighting a wild bear or a lion, so it's safe to say that this is a weakness. I remember in this game that I used to play, there is a skill called fishing, and the better that your fishing skill was, the better the fish that you could catch. My good friend and I used to play this game all the time, and it was funny because my fighting skills in the game were way better than his, but he had me totally beat when it came to fishing. So once I realized how weak this skill was, I started to train it, not by sitting down in a bedroom and thinking about it all the time, but by actually grabbing a net and going out there and catching fish. In real life, we are all like characters in a game. We have different strengths and weaknesses, and to get better at the game of life overall, or to become more confident, you have to recognize where your skills are lacking and improve them using action. It would be nice if we could just think our way to a higher fishing skill, but it doesn't work like that in the game, and especially not in real life. And this is yet another trick to unlock your hidden confidence. Number 4, acquire the right knowledge. Anything that you wish you could do in life is a combination of skills and knowledge. Making $1 million, attracting good-looking females, or even something like driving a car are all examples of things that you need skills and wisdom to do. So at its core, confidence is simply the belief that you can do something and do it well. And to do something well, you need to have specialized skills and knowledge that allow you to do that thing better and better. Maybe your goal is to make $1 million through selling stuff. This is going to take knowledge about human psychology, such as how people think and what makes them buy things. Maybe you want to become a more attractive man. In this case, you would need specialized knowledge about what women find attractive in a man, and you would also need to learn skills like how to walk in a way that projects confidence. Personally, I've spent the last 10 years of my life trying to build a better life, and along the way, I've learned an enormous amount of specialized knowledge concerning business, how people think, why girls behave the way they do, and all kinds of other specialized knowledge that will help me to be more confident when trying to achieve this goal. How do you think doctors, surgeons, and lawyers are able to appear so confident when speaking to their clients? It's because they've spent the last few years acquiring specialized knowledge and skills that allow them to be really good at what they do. So to unlock the hidden confidence within you to be able to do anything that you want to do confidently, you must acquire specialized skills and knowledge that will allow you to do that thing and do it well. And if you want to become a better man, be sure to check out my new channel, Stronger Men. The link is in the description. And with that said, until next time, thanks for watching.